So today I'm going to talk about the Bible and why I think that the Bible is true, but its truth is a different type of truth. And this is what I mean. Okay, so for most of us, the teachings of the Bible and the Bible itself is true in a sacred sense, right? It's an absolute truth. You don't get to question it. It's true and that's that, right? But I think there is a different way of looking at it. And see, there is this claim by the postmodernists that meaning is derived from words, right? And in a sense, that's true because sorry, because we use words to negotiate how to behave, right? And that's why, for example, in a lot of traditional African communities, we told stories, right? And it's an aspect of every culture that they did tell stories. So through communicating stories, probably to the younger generation and to everyone, they instructed the society on how to behave, right? And you can also, so you can also look at it in this aspect. So for example, when we want to have a change in something, let's say we want to have a change in law, right? That's why we have parliament in the first place, right? Through the exchange of words, we are able to decide what should be done and what should not be done, right? And so words play a very vital role in how a culture develops, right? And words don't just come from what we speak, right? It also comes from what is written. And for a very long time, the only book that you had was the Bible. For a very long time, it was the only book, right? Probably in Western society, before they had the book itself, they had sort of scrolls and whatnot. But later on, that was compiled into a book, right? And which was the Bible, and it was the most accessible book. And you think about it, really, the Bible was a library, because the Bible is not just a book, really. It's a collection of books. So it's a library, right? And this was what was accessible to every human being, right? And even in the African society, I mean, in high school we used to do this book called this book by Margaret Ogola called The River and the Source. And if I remember correctly, what used to happen as literacy was being introduced in the African communities, literacy came with religious education. So you will learn to read, and some of the first things that you would read would be religious texts, right? And even up to now, you could argue that the most common book, probably in every home, is the Bible, right? So obviously, this has a tremendous influence on how a culture is going to evolve, right? Because this was the primary text that was being read across all homes, right? And so see, the way we behave became intertwined with the teachings of the Bible, right? So the Bible's truth comes from the fact that it did shape how our culture develops, right? So if there was another book, right, we probably will be behaving according to that book, right? But the book which was there was the Bible, right? And so it really shaped how our culture developed, right? But once you understand this, you understand that the Bible's truth. So you understand that the Bible is true because it works, right? It's truly somewhat functional, right? And so now the question becomes, um, and this is, and probably, so what the atheist will do is that, they will try and claim that you know, there is no substance to the Bible, and that those teachings should be thrown away, and we can survive on the secularization of that's been recently introduced since the Enlightenment, and that science is superior. And well, that's true in a sense, but I think they say that the baby is mixed with the bath water. And it's really hard to separate them. Because the fact that our culture developed with this book means that you can't really throw it away and just decide that this is a false book and we're not going to follow it, and we should look for better alternatives. But the other alternative is also not good, right? Having an authoritarian sense towards the Bible and claiming that this is what you should do and this is what you should follow, right? Because you see, the solutions that we use to solve problems yesterday are not going to be the same solutions that we use to solve problems today or tomorrow, right? Because society is not static. Things change, right? In the same way that the sun moves from the west to the east, things tend to change, right? And as things change, we also need to change. So, but I think there is this statement by Jordan Peterson in his book Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, where he says, I think the first chapter, he says that do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievement, right? And he provides a middle ground. So he says there needs to be some sense of conservatism in social institutions. So the old has to be appreciated, and we have to understand that the old served to produce some sense of order, right? So you can't just do away with religion, because religion served a very huge purpose, right? It created social order, right? It served to organize us as human beings. But there's also the tendency of especially this happens with creative people. They're going to be a bit of non-conformists, right? And these are people who are going to introduce new ideas, right? And you think of it from this perspective, right? For example, think of something like the left, right? These are people who are championing for things such as gay rights, right? And well, you want to have a middle ground, right? So there needs to be some sense of conservatism. That is, you have to preserve the old, but you still have to appreciate the new, right? And so that means that we need to have changes, right? And as things become archaic and old and probably corrupt, there definitely needs to be a change, right? New laws have to come up, new beliefs have to come up, but that does not mean that we throw away the old beliefs, right? So I think my position on the Bible is that there is a lot of valuable text to be derived from the Bible, but we also have to appreciate that things also tend to change, right? So we need to also have some changes on some things, right? And that's part of the reason why, for example, in a country like Kenya, we have separation of church and state, right? So nobody goes lording over you and telling you that this is what you should believe, but you have the freedom to believe something different, right? But I think it will generally profit anyone to really read the Bible, and even if you have contradicting views on religion, there's some sense, there's always something to be derived from it, right? But you also have to be aware that you don't want to be like the person who believes in the Bible, in the sense that it's an absolute truth, and you don't get to question it, and everything that's there is true, and it should be loaded over everyone, and everyone should believe what is there, quite literally. So I mean, uh, you also need to understand that some things have changed, right? And some things are old, and there also needs to be some changes. Yeah, yeah. Peace.